Hello everyone, this is my game development channel where I do game development stuff. I also have a Twitch channel where I do also game development and make games. So in this episode I'm going to make a sprite manager in Monogame. It's really simple. Basically you can animate your sprites using frames, you can stop and start animations, you can do other stuff as well. But as for this demonstration, I'm just going to do something very simple. So I'm going to call it S Manager because I don't have conflicts with namespaces with the Sprite Manager and the actual program. So we got the main part of the program here. We got just the normal Monogame / XNA. I'm not going to do anything in here. Now, if this was an actual game of mine, I would probably remove all of this stuff except for this part. But since this is just for demonstration, I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm going to create a new class here, which is going to be called Sprite Manager. Sprite Manager, if I can spell. Alright, let's make it public so it can be accessed. Alright, so we'll need some properties here to start this. As for non-properties for our field, we'll also need a field called float, called transition time. I'll call it transition. Yeah, I'll call it transition time. This will be used to when the frame gets to end, it's going to go to the next frame, and it's going to use the time from this to switch each frame. I'll explain that later on. Public. Alright, so we're going to create some properties here. So it's going to be public float. Let me think here what to start. Let's do with index. That's the actual frame it's on, is the index. And we'll also need a sequence. That's the frame it's going to draw. It's going to be an array. Getting set. What else we'll need? Tile x and tile y, the width and height of how many frames per row and per column. So let's go int tile x. You can call this whatever you want, but this is what I'm calling it in this demonstration. Alright, so we got that. What else? So we'll need time, so how long it takes to show the next frame. So this will be int time. Let's see, we got the frames, x and y, we got the sequence, we got the index, we got the time. We'll need a bool, continuous animation. So when it reaches the end of continuous, that could be continuous. That might be spelled wrong, but whatever. So when it gets to the end of the frame, you can make it so it loops. I can call this loop, but I'm going to call it continuous. Let me think, anything else? Got the time, got the frames, got the index, got the sequence. I think that's it. If there is something else that I need, I'll just add it to this property list. Alright, so you really don't need this, but I'm going to put this in here. So let's go public. Put this in here. Probably won't need this, but I just do that manually. Alright, still we'll need an update. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Sometimes it does that. Alright, update. No. Update. Which will run off game time. And we're going to have two draw calls. We're going to have one as an override. You don't have to do this, but I like to do this because I have multiple draw calls sometimes, and I need them. That's not Sprite Manager, just Sprite Batch. Trying to Sprite Batch. Color. A little bit of other stuff in here like regions. If you want to have your image centered and you need the center region, origin, you can do that. Or if you want to have a depth, you can put depth in there, whatever you want. Put another public void. Draw. We're just going to run off Sprite Batch. Sprite Batch. Now this draw call is going to run off this main draw call. That's a fast way to do it. So let's go Sprite Batch, which runs a Sprite Batch with color.white. That's just a fast way of doing it. Alright, let's see what else we'll need. We'll need a private field here. So this is going to use a calculation to get how many frames there are per row. Oh yeah, I forgot one thing. We'll need texture, that's the main thing. Public texture 2D, texture. This will store the texture data. of the actual image, so you can use in the Sprite Manager. So this is going to get the texture data from the image. Alright, so let's see here. What should I do here? I should make it as a... I'm going to make this as a point. I can make this as a vector, but I'm going to make it as a point. And this is going to be get max frames, which is int width, int height. Alright, let's do this. Return new point. So we're creating a new point here. Width, divide by tile x. How many tiles there are on the width, and height, divide by how many tiles y. So it'll give me how many frames there are per row and per column. And sometimes I need to get the texture data, so I'm going to create a public. I'm going to make this as a property. So let's put it up here. It's going to be just a getter. So it's public. Let's make it another point. Size, actually tile size. This will give me the size of one cell, the width and the height of that frame slash cell, which is a get. Let's return new point. Actually, let's see here. Do I need, no. Return get max frames, which is texture.width, texture.height. That's just a shortcut way to get your texture data. Alright, now sometimes I want to make customized frames, but I want to create new brackets with a array. What you can do is this is a little shortcut. So it's an int. This will return as an array, but it's going to use params. So I'll just call inject params int. And I'll do sequence. It's just a faster way to make an array of frame numbers. So this is going to return sequence. That's it. So I could go like, I'll just put this in comments. If this was a frame, be like 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0. And now we'll convert it into an actual int array. It's just a faster way of doing it. Or I could go like this. I could go like var, let's go like int. I'll just do in comments. It'd be like var, if this is in the method, var test. Then I have to go like new int, or actually like new. That's a faster way of doing it. And they're like 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, whatever. This way, if you use like an injector, it does it very quickly for you. Alright, so we got most of the stuff here. Let's do the update call first. Since I don't have a pause, sometimes I like to put pause in there before it actually does the frames, but this will be fine. Alright, so when we create a method up here called transition time, it's going to use that. So it's transition time. We have to convert it into a float because the time is actually in a double. Game time, elapsed game time, and total milliseconds. Not total seconds. It has to be milliseconds. This is an actual double, and I'm converting it into a float. Alright, so if transition time is greater than the time, when it gets over that time, it's going to do the next frame. But we need to convert this back to, well, we have to turn it back to 0, or it's going to keep going to the next frame. We want it to reset, and we still do index plus plus. That's going to go to the next frame. But we also need to check to make sure it doesn't reach the end of the sequence, because this index is going to run off sequence up here. This is the frames it's going to draw. So if index is greater than sequence.length, then let's create another if. I could put if and if is continuous, but I'm going to do it this way. If continuous, if it's a looping animation, then we're going to set the index back to 0. But if it's not, we're going to keep the index at the last frame. So, oh wait, index minus 1, index equals that. It's going to stay there. So that's pretty much done. Alright, now let's do the actual draw call. We need to do something before we actually do anything. So if it's this, because if you don't have this in here, it's going to give you an error sometimes. We need to just make sure it sets it not above the actual sequence of the length of of the array. And if you don't do this, it's going to create an error. And I did something wrong here. Let's get rid of that. There. Alright. Let's put that back in there. Alright. Alright, so if this is not here, you have a chance to get an error. You'd be like, why isn't this working? Blah, blah, blah. Because you didn't put this in here. Alright. So we need to do a special method here. This is going to look a little weird, but we need, when it reaches the end of the frame width, it's going to go to the next row if it's like a really long animation. So what you can do is, the original way is to stop the animation to the next frame set, but you can actually make it so it loops. If the frame is like, it's 10 frames per width, and your animation's like 11 to, or it's like 9 to 11, you can make it so it bounces to the next row of frames. So what you can do is, let's go var, we'll call X sequence, the width of the sequence, which is very simple. It's sequence index with this sign, tile X. So what this is doing is, when it reaches the end of the sequence row, let's say if it's like 10 frames per row, when it reaches past 10, it's going to set it back to 0, and that's what that basically does. So it's just a little, if you want to look into what this sign means, you might have to look it up, but basically when it reaches the end of 10, it's going to go back to 0. So we want to do the height, y sequence equals sequence index, and this is divided by tile X. So when it reaches 10, it's going to go 1. When it reaches 20, it's going to go 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. So every 10, if there was 10 frames per row, every 10, it's going to go 1. If it was below 10, it'd be 0. If it was 20, it'd be like 2, etc. Or if it was like 15, it'd be, if it's past 15, it'd be 1, etc. Whatever, how many rows on the width you have. This is a little short method to get the next row in frames. Alright, so once we got that, we can make the actual rectangle to draw our stuff onto the screen, or get the frame before we can draw the stuff onto the screen. So we want to go, I'm going to call it rect sprite equals new rectangle. Oops, it's not rectangle, rectangle. Alright, so we need to get the width and the height of the, or not the width, we need to get the index of the X and Y of the frame index. It's really simple. We just go X sequence, Y sequence, because we already have the data already in there. Actually, it's X sequence times tile X, excuse me, Y sequence times tile Y. Now if you ever made a tile map, you will probably understand what I'm doing here. If you're not sure, just leave a comment, I'll try to explain it more. But basically I'm just getting the index from the sequence, which is the frame number, to draw it, to get the data. So after that, this is the X of the rectangle, this is the Y position of the rectangle, and the next part is the sequence, which is going to run off tile size dot X, tile size dot Y. So that's the width and height of the single cell frame. Alright, so once we got that, all we have to do is draw the thing. Start batch, draw, which is texture. After that, it is position. Oh yeah, I forgot about position. Position has to be in there too. Vector 2, position. The getter and setter. Position. Then the rectangle, rect sprite, and color. Has to be capital T. Alright, so this is pretty much it. All we have to do now is load the content. So let's go do this. Oops. Right. Want to make sure this is using the right one, so I'm going to go into S Manager. Okay, good, it is. Alright, so I'm going to use one of my textures I've used in my my live streams. Let's get into here. Content, game, content. I'm going to use the warrior. Let's bring him into here. Hold this back up again. Actually, close one of them because I already have one down here. Let's add existing item. I'm going to build it. Oops. I'm going to build it. It built successfully. Alright. So let's go back into our game. Let's go into Sprite Manager. I'm going to call it Sprite Manager with an underscore because it's a private. Because this thing is private. Alright. Let's go down here. Sprite Manager equals new Sprite Manager. Let's open it up. Oops. Let's open it up. So let's go texture equals content.load, which will run off texture 2D, and it's going to be SD warrior. That's the actual texture file name. Oops, have to bracket it. Alright, so how many frames are in the width and the height? So it's, oops, close that. Now you don't start from 0, start from 1, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So there are 24 frames or cells, and tile Y there are 2. After we do that, we're going to do time. So every 60 milliseconds it's going to do a new frame, and we want to set continuous to true, so it'll loop. That's pretty much it for this part. All we have to do now is go to our update right in here. Let's go Sprite Manager, that update, it'll run off game time, and all I have to do is start the draw call. So let's go Sprite Batch, begin, and Sprite Batch.end. In here, go Sprite Manager, draw. We're going to do Sprite Batch. I'll do color. Actually, I don't need to do that because I made that double draw call. And let's see if we have any errors. Save it. Load it up. Okay, so we get, oh, I didn't set the sequence. Alright, so this does work, I just haven't set the sequence. So let's make a little sequence of animation. So we're going to do Sprite Manager. Okay, let's get back into Sprite Manager. Alright, let's make this static so I can access it anywhere. Inject. So we're going to create a very simple walk animation. So let's go back to our image here. So I hate when that happens. So where my mouse is at the very top left, it's going to be 0, 1. And it's going back to 0. Then 2, and it's going to loop. So I'm just making a very basic walk animation here. So it's going here, back, back. It's going to keep going like this. It's going to look like a walk animation. Alright, let's go back into here. So the sequence is 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 2, 2. Now this should work. So we have our sequence, we have the begin and end draw calls. It should just animate. And there's nothing. What did I do wrong? Okay. So my problem was I made the wrong. We'll convert this into tile X, tile all, tile Y, tile X or tile size dot X and tile X dot Y. So I made a little error here and it should work properly. So there it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slow it down a little bit. So let's make this into like 160. It's going a little too fast. So you can actually see the animation better. So there it is. That's how you make a sprite manager. There's a lot of applications you can use this. You can make it so when it reaches the end of the frame, it can do something else. By adding on to it, you can actually make a trigger system, so when it reaches the end of the frame, you can do something, or you can make layers to it as well, using multiple sprite managers. So that's how one way you make a sprite manager. There's multiple ways. This way is more dynamic, so you're not restricted to a list of frames. You can use like frame 0 or frame 20 to do all your animations, so you can keep reusing your frames. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this sprite manager episode, don't forget to leave a like, or if you have some questions, don't forget to leave a comment below and I'll try my best to reply back. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.